hits, that Void Ray is going to try to charge on the rocks. Most Protoss players will always do this, but my Mutas are going to be able to intercept. They came out just in time to deal with the Void Ray. Typically though, most Protoss players will be able to get the Void Ray or Phoenix into your base when your Spire is about halfway done. And if that's the case, you want to make sure you have plenty of queens. About 2 or 3 queens are enough to deal with a single Void Ray. So my Protoss opponent this game a little bit delayed in his Void Ray because he decided to go for the Nexus first. But it doesn't really matter. Now I've got my Mutas into his base. I'm going to be able to harass his probe line. He's a pretty good player. He's got his Stalkers in position to fend off my Mutas at every twist and turn. But here's the key component. Unlike going Roach Hydra against Protoss, now I've got full map control. The Protoss player is on the defensive. He doesn't really know when to push out. He's uncomfortable because I've got complete air domination right now. So I can go for an expansion if I want. I can pump more drones if I want. I can go mass Muta, mass Ling, and just barrel down that front door if I want. The ball is in my court now, and that's not something that a lot of Zerg players have when they go for a standard Roach Hydra play. So as you guys can see, continuing to drone up, a typical good number for drones if you only got 2 bases is 50. That means 25 at your main, 25 at your nat, and keep pumping drones for your third when you do secure it. And of course, going in with my Mutas, continuing to harass, picked off about 6 or 7 probes there, and always try to get these Phoenixes whenever they go out of position, just like that. Because Phoenix in number are able to easily out-micro Mutalisks. They can just, there's a video where a Phoenix killed 50 Mutalisks, or like 100 Mutalisks by himself. And I mean, it's really not that easy to do, but it is possible. So pick off those Phoenix whenever possible. And continue to keep your Mutas alive. Don't overcommit. Get your third down. Continue to pump drones. As you guys can see, reaching that point where I might be just a little oversaturated. One thing I would recommend that you do if you're watching this replay and you're going to try this build out is to spread the creep better. If I could, I would try to spread that creep a little bit better. I should have the creep down to the Xel'Naga Watchtower at this point. But, it requires a lot of APM to be able to control all these things. But as you guys can see, keeping the Mutalisks alive, gonna fly back into the main and pick off several more probes. And at this point, I checked the replay, my opponent was down to like 30 harvesters to my 55 or 60. And there you guys see the Phoenix. The Phoenix are gonna, if they're gonna stand still like that, then you gotta go in and pick them off. This is always a good trade because later on, there's gonna be a massive battle to determine the winner. And it's gonna be MutaLing versus all those Phoenix and whatever ground forces the Protoss has. And the more Phoenix you kill now, the better. Now, the other important thing you guys should remember is always produce Zerglings. If one other fault I would fault myself on is not producing enough Zerglings. At this point, I should have at least, 60, 70 Zerglings. Also getting those upgrades for the Lings and teching up to Hive to get Ultras or Broodlords if I want. But I should have more Lings right now because at this point, the Protoss player, what ground forces he has is not going to be enough to deal with mass Zergling. Guaranteed. Because he's committed so much to deal with the Mutas in the air that he's not going to have enough to deal with mass Speedling. So, as you guys can see, still retaining map control, spreading those Overlords on the minimap. You guys can see I have Overlords at almost every single possible resource node, so I know when my opponent decides to get a third expansion, and when the Protoss gets that third, you have to shut it down. You can't allow the Protoss to secure a third. And it should be relatively easy with the mass number of Mutas and Lings you've got, picking off that Phoenix right there. And of course, continuing to pump units out of everything, getting the upgrades for my Mutalisks, getting the Carapace and melee weapons for my Zerglings, getting more Zerglings whenever possible, and of course, this is where you've got full control of the game. If you haven't already, you should. If you're playing this against an opponent, you're trying this MutaLing, 2-hatch MutaLing against Protoss, and you're not in a secure position, then you gotta practice the basics, the basics, because this is where you should be in full control of the game, and it should be a relatively easy win. So you guys can see also getting an Ultralisk Cavern down, my opponent wisely moving a Zealot out to scout where my third is. He knows that there is a third somewhere on the map, and I'm just gonna move my Zerglings, just flood them all over to deal with that Zealot. And of course, always trying to control the Watchtower whenever possible. Those Watchtowers are so key in StarCraft 2 because they give you such a huge, huge area of vision at the center. And this Zealot actually is kind of having a party with my drones, but I am going to be able to take it out. And I do have an Ultralisk Cavern down right there. That's the Ultralisk Cavern morphing in, getting my Hive Tech ready to go. And the upgrades do share with the Zerglings. So it looks like my opponent is finally deciding to push out. And this is the large encounter that I was speaking about before. And all you have to do here is be careful. Make sure you surround with your Zerglings and then flood your MutaLisks overhead. And I should have more Zerglings in this, like I said before, but that's okay. And you guys can see I'm also splitting my Zerglings, bringing some from the north and some from the south. This is to make sure my Protoss player can't kite me. He's forced to stay in this one position, and this is where all my Zerglings and Mutas can just dominate the Protoss forces. So there you guys see everything getting taken out. The force fields really, they were able to take care of the Zerglings, but I still have way too many MutaLisks for my opponent to handle. And this should be a relatively easy GG from here on out. Just gonna flood in with my Mutas to take out my opponent. But you never want to get complacent when you're playing. You never want to say, oh, I won the game, now I can just kind of sit back, eat food, and, you know, do nothing. No, that's not the case. You have to make sure that you're always building stuff. So back at my base, I'm still getting ultras, I'm still pumping units, still getting upgrades, still pumping drones. And actually, if you guys look at my minerals, I'm at like 2,000 minerals right now, and that's because I've only got 3 hatcheries. I've got the gold, and I'm not spawning larvae as much as I should be, so that's kind of the reason why I've got all these excess minerals, which could be Zerglings. I guess I could use an in-base hatchery right now. That would be kind of nice. But it doesn't really matter. I've pretty much taken this game. Also getting a 4th down. Like I said, never want to get complacent. And this should be a relatively, yeah, there we go. It's my opponent. GG's out of the game. And that is how you play 2-hatch MutaLing versus Protoss. So a very easy build order to do. And what I like about this build is it gives you control over the Protoss player, unlike Roach Hydra. But of course, every Zerg player has their own tendencies. You can try Roach Hydra if you like it better, and if you're better at it. I'm personally not too good at dealing with Colossus, and so that's why I thought this video showcasing MutaLing would be a good video for Zerg players out there who are having difficulty with that massive Colossus ball. So there we go, that's going to be the video, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the build order real quick. As you guys can see, this was a ladder game that I played against my opponent, and climbing that ladder, I have like 200 or like 100 something bonus points. But anyways, here we go. This is going to be the build order, and as you guys can see, getting Overlord on 9, relatively standard, spawning pool on 14, and then Overlord on 16, Extractor on 15. And this is where I was getting a Spine Crawler pumping out Zerglings to deal with the 2-gate pressure from the Zealots. Also want to make sure you get Metabolic Boost with your first 100 gas. Keep mining that gas up to the layer tech, and I'm kind of scrolling through this really quickly, but yeah, getting layer around 33, you guys can pause the video. And right after the layer, get your second Extractor down. Pump Queens, get your Spire around the 8, I guess, minute mark. And that's right after your hatchery spawns out. You should get your Spire, and that's basically the opening for 2-hatch MutaLing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that tutorial video, and good luck, Zerg players out there on the ladder facing against Protoss. Stay tuned for more tutorial videos as well as broadcasts to come in the near future. HD, signing out.